All right, and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. Today we're just discussing a little bit more about Blue Beetle. It's been on the minds of us folks over at DCU Daily all year. We were all excited to go watch Blue Beetle. We went and saw it. I think we all generally liked it. I think most people who went and saw it liked it. There were a lot of good familiar elements to it. There was some good action. I love some of the CGI in the movie. And Blue Beetle as a whole, I mean, as a character, it's quite unique to DC because we don't really have a ton of other characters in DC, at least in recent times, that are like Blue Beetle. So I personally, like really enjoyed what Blue Beetle brought to the table. Unfortunately, it's a movie that didn't make a ton of money, much like a lot of other recent DC movies. It sort of flopped. Like, I think not sort of, it definitely flopped. It made like less than 200 million, and that's certainly not enough to be profitable for a movie that had a budget of a little over 100 million, plus the money that they spent on marketing. So I wanted to ask you, John, we recently heard that James Gunn is going to be bringing Blue Beetle into the DCU from the DCEU, and Xolo Mariduena is going to reprise his role as Blue Beetle as Jaime Reyes. So even with the movie that we got this year not necessarily being canon to the DCU, it looks like the character is coming across. And as a result of that, recently the director of Blue Beetle, he was pretty excited about this development, and he was sort of like looking forward to what's to come. And then also he gave us a little more insight into what we almost got towards the end of the Blue Beetle movie. So can you tell us a little bit more
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, Soto was recently the director was in an interview with Screen Rant, I believe, and he was talking about a whole bunch of stuff. The first thing was the original ending. I don't know if this was like in the script specifically, but he was just talking about how he wanted to do the cameo in the film in regards to Ted Cord. Now, if to remind people, the cameo that we did get was like him on a computer. You hear a voiceover. He's like, Ted Cord is alive. We see that in the Beetle Cave or whatever the heck it was called, and so we just hear him. Just some like a random like voice actor just tell them that Ted Cord's alive, which we all suspected because I mean Ted Cord is such a big fan favorite in addition to Jaime Reyes. So so what the director originally wanted to do was have Jenny and Jaime just talking randomly, and he comes in, and Ted Court's like, "Who are you?" And Jaime's like, "Who are you?" And sort of like that Spider-Man meme where it's like they're pointing at each other, like, "Who are you? What are you doing here? What's going on?" And then it just was like just supposed to be like this very comedic sort of cameo, kind of akin to Shazam, the original Shazam with the Superman cameo, like me feeding into more of the comedy aspect of it. So that's what he wanted to do. But I guess with how everything was going on, with how, the reboot was going to happen, they didn't want to like promise an actor who couldn't do it and then have him be replaced and all of that. So they're like, let's just have a voiceover. We don't see his face, so if, and it is the case when Blue Beetle is introduced in James Gunn's DCU, he has the power to just um, cast anybody who he wants, and we have a Ted Cord. And in addition to that, Soto was also talking about he knew that in terms of the future, with James Gunn confirming that Xolo Mariduena is going to be Blue Beetle in the DCU, he was ecstatic about it. He's like, I knew Xolo would be a star. I knew he would nail this role. People already loved him on Cobra Kai, and they were going to love him here. And I'm glad that even with the movie unfortunately bombing, that they loved him. I know I did. So he was very happy about that, and even dropped some nuggets of information in regards to him talking with James Gunn that maybe uh, that Jaime Reyes is going to cameo or even have a bigger role in the upcoming Booster Gold show. Now, as we know, Booster Gold has not been cast yet, although Chris Pratt has been making the rounds in terms of rumored Booster Gold as a rumored Booster Gold with his connection to James Gunn with the Guardians movies. So there's also that. So yeah, it was definitely fun. I will say the cameo certainly could have been really fun in terms of like, that like kind of like a funny ending it on a good lighthearted joke. And then I'm excited for Jolo just adding on to what what he did in the first movie, whether it is full on reboot, semi reboot, who knows what they're doing. It's just we just know that he's coming back, and I'm glad Soto gave us something, whether he's a part of it or not, that we might get him in Booster Gold, which is definitely very exciting. And I liked how he talked about both past and future. That was really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Angel Manuel Soto, the director. I think he did a fantastic job with this movie, and especially when you think about the fact that when they were developing this film, it was meant to be like this 50, $70 million HBO Max exclusive,
Hmm.
sort of a direct-to-TV film. And, like Warner Brothers looked at it and said, well, this has potential. So they decided to bump it up to a theatrical release and then gave it more money to make it, make it really more at the scale that you would want it to be for a theatrical release. And I think
Hmm.
by the time we got the movie in theaters, we got a film that stands on its own. I mean, it loosely connects to some DCEU elements, but I mean, beyond like a couple of mentions of Batman, I don't really, and even then, they don't really mention anything that's specific to the DCEU Batman. Um, I think if this movie were to all of a sudden become canon to the new DCU, it wouldn't, you know, take anything away from any of the new stories, or it certainly wouldn't feel out of place. Also, for a lot of fans, if anything, it will probably allow them to have even greater appreciation for what this movie was. And in a time when superhero movies are scrutinized more than ever, because people I think nowadays are looking for every superhero movie to be something different. They don't want to just get a cookie cutter or some seen it before sort of a superhero movie. I think we're past that time when you can get away with a movie that's not really groundbreaking, but it's in the genre, so people will go watch it. Nowadays, people want to watch something that's uniquely different from anything they've seen before. And so, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse did really well because it was like that. We have seen the Batman do really well because it was so different from what we have seen with other recent iterations of the Batman as a character. And I think Blue Beetle, where it suffered a little bit, was because it felt a little more like along the lines of your traditional by the numbers superhero origin story movies. And despite the familial themes and a lot of what they did, like cultural exploration for the Latino culture, and how there was a lot of socioeconomic commentary on the socioeconomics of like the city where Jaime Reyes lives, and how there's this big divide between the people living in the Keys and living in the downtown areas. And I think there was a lot of good commentary there, a lot of good stuff that should have, made it stand out a bit more. But I think ultimately, because the main plot was rather simple, the villain was fairly forgettable. I think the movie struggled, and in addition to that, of course, people don't have the highest opinion of DC movies in recent times, so that didn't help
Right.
it either. But I'm glad that the director. It looks like he may be sticking around. We may be getting more from him. That if Blue Beetle gets another movie, it looks like Soto would be the best one to kind of put behind the camera, and he did such a fantastic job with the first one. I would trust, if I was James Gunn, I would trust him to direct more Blue Beetle
Hmm.
adventures. And as far as seeing a Booster Gold cameo, oh, that would be like me just going all the way back to like watching Justice League Unlimited, or like reading up old DC comics. It's just a fantastic throwback, and finally getting that in live action would be quite amazing. I think a lot of DC fans would love it. So yeah, guys, let us know in the comments below what you think about this. Are you excited that Blue Beetle is coming across in a new DCU, and Xolo Mariduena is going to continue playing the character of Jaime Reyes? Of course, Ted Cord, we may get a Ted Cord now. They didn't cast one for the previous Blue Beetle movie because they weren't sure how the transition would be with the new DCU. But it looks like they may pull on that thread in the future, and I would love to see two Blue Beetles in the new DCU. Certainly, we know the good thing about Blue Beetle is it's not like Spider-Man, where every Spider-Man is roughly the same character in terms of the power set. These two Blue Beetles are very different in terms of what they're capable of, because one of them is more like a Batman who doesn't really have powers, but derives his powers from technology that he has created, inspired by the scarab of the beetle. Whereas, Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle is very much got the powers of the scarab. So they both are Blue Beetle, but they're two very different kinds of Blue Beetle. So I think them two existing together, and particularly one being a lot younger than the other, you can have that Scott Lang, Hank Pym sort of a mentor, master sort of a relationship, which I think would be fantastic. So yeah, guys, let us know in the comments what you think about Blue Beetle going on into the new DCU, and maybe having Angel Manuel Soto continue to direct more adventures of Blue Beetle on screen. And of course, like and subscribe for more content like this. We'll be back here each and every day talking about all things DC.